Fine. So what we'll do now is we'll have a panel session for about 30 minutes. I'll just ask David to introduce himself.
Okay, evening all. David Hunter, I'm the CEO of Ucash. I'm here this evening because we're talking about digital money, and I might say this, mightn't I, but I believe that Ucash is probably the closest thing there is to pure digital money, especially if you look at it from the definition of the e-money directive, for example, which states that electronic money is an electronic surrogate for banknotes and coins, which is exactly what Ucash does. So I'm interested to hear some of your questions a bit later on as well.
How do you think the future is going to progress in terms of that? There's Google have a wallet, PayPal have a wallet. John just mentioned Barclays are doing their own thing with NFC. I just heard Starbucks have their own thing happening with, I think, American Express. And there's always, every few days, there's a new company who's coming out with a new digital sort of solution or mobile sort of payment plan or something.
I'll start with that. I mean, yeah, it's a really good point. And there's some interesting innovations. We've seen some fantastic innovations earlier on in this session. I look at the likes of Google Wallet, for example, and as somebody mentioned earlier, it's not really about the payment as such, is it? I think what Google are trying to do is try and create the success they have been able to create around advertising in the online world and bring that into the physical world. And they'll do that through loyalty programs, coupons, and what they're talking about wallet, they're talking about a wider, if you look in your wallet, it's more than just cards and cash. There could be loyalty cards in there, and your airline lounge stuff and things like this, and coupons and discounts. And that's where Google are going in this space. I think there's a real issue around your point, I think, is inferring that there are too many players potentially for what is currently still quite a small demand-led situation from consumers. And so I think that is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. For me, one of the key things in the future will be interoperability between digital money plays. It won't just be the card schemes, in my view. I have this weird vision, actually, that could bring all these things together, where bitcoins potentially could be used as like almost like the internet protocol layer of financial transactions, and it could be used just for good, where everything else on top is regulated. But that's just a vision, so I'll pass it on.
That's a pretty common vision, also. It is. No. I mean, among Bitcoin people, it's like not everyone that's saying, "Oh, we want world dominance." There's like some people saying, "Yeah, it's a very practical utility that we can use for payment transfers, where the endpoints meet back into into electronic currency. So use this virtual currency for e-money."
So interoperability is absolutely right, in my opinion. Before I got a real job, I played in this space quite heavily. And I think one of the things is to ask yourself, who are you going to trust with your wallet? That's going to help you picture where the success will come. Now, don't be confused by the success of individual brands that have a customer experience that their customer loves, because they will keep allegiance in that space, whatever they do. Whether it be a coffee shop, whether it be a handset provider, they get a following, they'll create a relationship, and they'll create an experience. But it's the pervasive acceptance and the pervasive issuing that's going to win. And if you trust a technology company with your money, then that's your decision, and you'll be one of their customers. There'll be lots of others who won't. And so I think that ultimately you'll find there is as many wallets as there are currently credit card and plastic issuers in the world today, and that is thousands and thousands of them. John?
I think there's going to be, to the point, there's going to be lots of wallets. I personally think there'll be a shakedown in a few years, and those that will survive are those that give service above payment. So payment, to Stuart's point, trust is inherent. You've got to trust people with your money to move money. But if the wallet doesn't do more than just payment, I think people will move on to others. So I think there will be a whole array of wallets coming out in the next 1 to 2, 3 years, and then a shakedown of those, and the stronger will survive. And the stronger being not just the big institutions, but the ones delivering a really compelling experience.
I think that possibly the last response hit on it. Are you all assuming that payment is the killer app for wallets? Or is it, for example, identity? Because you have to separate identity from transaction flows from funds flows. And the concept of a payment is a mixture, depending on the context, of all three.
Yeah, so it's like 1 in 35 £1 coins is counterfeit, and there's like a lot of a lot of the arguments I've seen for people saying, oh yeah, we need to move to these like cashless payments is that, oh yeah, there's this huge level of fraud, or or that there's all these costs inherent in the system that. And a lot of the solution I've seen proposed always involve somehow externalizing that cost onto the users as opposed away from the financial processors. And I don't really see that like as a winning argument if we want to move forwards.
A simple answer to the question, no, I don't see payment as the killer app. I see it as a necessary to allow anyone to play in the game. So I think the killer app is something that drives the customer to perceive they get value from the wallet, but it doesn't have to be measured financially.
Just to add to that, if I take one of my favourite apps today is Flipboard. Flipboard does a really good job of consolidating services that I use a lot. I use my email, I use LinkedIn, use Facebook. I think that the consolidation and the layer which puts the things that are important to me, not just payment, together in a really useful, usable, simple, secure way will be the winner.
Yeah, just quite a specific question. What were the dynamics between Apple not including an NFC chip in its most recent handset? I mean, is that because they don't want to encourage that, or is it just too technically difficult, or what?
Well, I think anything you get from this panel will be pretty subjective, right, on that question. But my take is they've just done the maths and don't believe the market's ready for NFC. I was at a conference recently in the States, and the joke going around the conference was that NFC stands for not for consumers, which is obviously a bit harsh, right? But the point is that there isn't a mass adoption pull from consumer markets for NFC yet. But then again, when a lot of mobile phone companies put a camera on phones for the first time, it took a while for consumers to start to get used to that and use them. And I see it going the same way. I do see NFC being useful. Like payments is a two-sided market, and use of NFC is going to be very much like that. It's going to require critical mass to really accelerate. And again, NFC isn't just about the payment transaction. It might be about a call to action for a promotion or a marketing campaign. I see NFC-enabled ad signs now in bus shelters. That's another use for NFC. NFC for transit, NFC for identification. So I think that NFC is a great technology that will permeate through many, many walks of our everyday lives. The mobile device is perfect for carrying that chip. Apple have just decided that it's not quite ready yet.
I think Apple geniuses. I think they've figured out that it's a waste of R&D expense because a lot of money is being wasted on mobile payments as a whole. I mean, just quickly, I'll probably get this completely wrong, but how many people in this room have made a mobile payment? Stick your hands up. Recently? No, contactless payment. Okay. Do you do it regularly? Would you do it more? Do you believe in having your wallet on your mobile phone? The issue I think we have in this country particularly, and we always look at it from a very sort of silo viewpoint,
we look at it in certain US NFC has taken off, fantastically. You go into a taxi cab in New York, you can now pay just by touching. It's fantastic. But they're leaping from a technology which, as somebody said earlier, magnetic stripe signature. We have chip and pin, and a lot of people have faith in chip and pin. If you look at the user experience as to how I make a payment, do I trust that contactless payment enough? I've talked to the guys in, just casually in Pret-a-Manger, which is one of the places which is very prevalent in terms of accepting contactless payment. The managers there, they say, so often it goes wrong, or, they end up having to put the chip and pin in anyway. So these are little teething issues that need to be reconciled and sorted out. But I just fundamentally believe that in a lot of economies, NFC is the sort of, I guess, the litmus paper at the bottom of the fire that's going to ignite the next wave of development. I don't think NFC is going to be ubiquitous. I don't think it's going to take off. And I think it will be the next generation of payment which will probably target the younger generation, where they can ingrain that type of new form of payment into them from an early age, and it's just become common to them. Most of them don't know what a VHS tape is. Most of them think an iPad and an iPhone is just part of life now. It's that generation where I think new forms of technology and new forms of payment are really, really going to take off. I think you'll see a lot of adoption from technologically advanced people that want to play, but I don't see it on a mass market scale in this country, potentially in the US, because they're coming from so far behind.
A different question is to John. Actually, from the Barclaycard perspective, do you see increased demand because in terms of your card issuing base? Do you see that as being a massive advantage for customers? Because I would want to be a Barclays customer, because actually I can do that on my sort of debit card, and they're just much further advanced in terms of their alliances with mobile operators. Is that a competitive advantage in that card issuing market?
On the mobile side, possibly. On the card side, it's not really. As an industry, the industry's moved with contactless, so it's now issued with RBS, and I think there's 7 different issuers now of contactless. So we want that to be out there. We want people to be not just a Barclays thing. On the phone side, it is a point of difference for now. It's Barclaycard is an innovator, but again, we want others to play along with this. We want others to put the services out to market. To your point around the merchant. Certain segments to start with contactless really adopted it. The quick-paced merchants which needed to get footfall. We're now seeing a lot of tier 1 merchants trialing, so Tesco's and Waitrose, Boots, and many others are trying contactless and getting some really good results. So that kind of ubiquity is needed on the high street, whereas you move from just being able to use it in a certain suite of shops to being you can just use it wherever you want, and that's going to be one of the kind of stepping stones, and that's I think this year and early next year is the stimulus for that.
So for physical payments, we're looking at NFC, chip and pin, magnetic stripes for that as unique identifiers. When are biometrics going to play a part? Are they going to ever play a part?
Personal view, yes, I think they will. I think it's again, it's about seeing so many different types of startups that bring in biometric innovation. I've seen innovation around biometrics for voice is a one that's out there already, not getting much traction. I definitely see the future. If we're thinking about how to get this out to customers in an easy way, I think finger or face recognition is probably getting closer. The cameras, the front-facing cameras on a mobile phone, lend itself more and more to that in the future. But I think it's tough, right? Because it's again, how do you get to mass adoption? There's got to be a compelling, coming back to what's the killer app? What's the compelling reason for customers to adopt this technology? It's all very well having it out there, and we see lots of companies bringing great innovations in this space, but unless they find what really customers want and need, they'll struggle, I think.
I think biometrics are evil, and I'd fight against it.
And I think that's a great lead-in for my opinion. Actually, I think I spoke to someone whilst I was trying to get some more alcohol, and I said I think that what needs to happen is you need to give the consumer choice. In my opinion, successful solutions will give consumers choice as to how they authenticate themselves. So within the card world, you can see signature, you can see PIN, and you can see contactless, where you have neither of those. And some people feel comfortable with one of those, some people are comfortable with all three of those. With biometrics, you're going to have, if you can give them the choice, you'll have the same reaction. You'll find some people will adopt it, some people will just dismiss it out of hand. So why not allow me as a consumer, if it's my money and if it's my identity, to choose the level of authentication that I would support for a particular event in a particular environment. So for me, that's the winning solution.
I was just going to mention that there's a nice example. It's not true biometrics, but Square and Starbucks in the US have got this location-based, effectively location-based recognition of me. So I walk in there, and a picture pops up on their infrastructure to say John has walked in, and this is what John usually likes. Now that creates a warm conversation for Starbucks to say, we know what he likes, and that may be seen as intrusive to some people, so they wouldn't take it. To Stuart's point, you know, it's going to be for some people and they'll take a choice. But if it gives a benefit, if I get a benefit out of that, if me as a user get something back, if I like being talked to and approached to, I'll buy into that. So I think it will be choice, and it will be choice driven by what's in it for me. The customer's going to want to get something, or needs to get something out of it at the end of the day.
We talk about innovation and bandy the term about willy-nilly, but innovation is all about delivering significant value. That's what defines innovation to me. The thing with any method of payment or wallets or any digital money is all about the value add to the user experience. People will adopt something that adds clear value. So quite rightly, it's about choice. Different segments of society value things differently. Different people value trust. Different people value intrusion. They feel, you know, walking into Starbucks with that and being geolocated, they think, oh my God, I don't like that. Things will change over time with generational effect, but it has to add significant value for it to be adopted. So biometrics, I mean, biometrics were adopted on computers for a long time, right? Signing in, and they kind of died a death because they were pretty useless. So if there was a useful solution that added value, then I'm sure it will be adopted. Depends what kind of solution it is, really, right? Doesn't matter, you don't tie it to anything, it's just about adding value, ultimately, right? Making life easier.
Yeah, also, if you're talking about innovations, there's usually like two classes of innovations. There's incremental innovations, which is finding a way to manufacture products, you know, in an improved technique, so you can produce more of them, and over time you're able to like improve the cost and so on. But then there's, you know, disruptive innovation, and typically, like, the way people imagine that is like some new product comes to the market and boom, takes it over. But that's not really how it happens in practice. Usually it's a new product which, for a small reduction in quality, it offers a significant reduction in price. An example of that is digital cameras or printers or even hydraulic operated forklift trucks. And the thing with like digital cameras was the early digital cameras offered worse picture quality than film photography, but you know, you could take hundreds of photos, even though the shutter time was very long, the exposure times were terrible, and so on. What happens with these types of technologies is they grow and they improve over time until they're at a level where they can compete with the target market and then displace that market completely. A lot of technology, there's been a whole array of fantastic technology which did not get adopted because technology is not adopted based on technological merit but on social acceptability, and that's the most fundamental thing to realize.
You can come up with the best product in the world. I mean, Google is famous for this, and then it never goes anywhere. Google Wave, I mean, everyone thought that was brilliant when it first came out. Techies loved it. Google has 157 different products. One of them makes money, right? They have techies designing products. They make loads and loads of fantastic shit, but it never makes any money, and it isn't adopted necessarily on a massive scale by everyone. It has to add social value, ultimately, right? Both for adoption, and both ultimately, if you're a business, you want to make money out of it as well. So.
Yeah, I wanted to ask all the panel really about the way that transactions in future can be used, or their technologies can be used to put transactions beyond the reach of people who the consumer or the supplier might not want to be involved in that transaction. I'll give you 3 examples. If you're buying a Starbucks, then you might use that payment to make sure that it's going to a tax entity in Bermuda to make sure that Starbucks doesn't ever have to pay any tax ever at all, ever on anything. That would be one example of how you'd want to put something beyond someone's reach. I don't believe they do pay tax, but although they rather generously claim that PAYE, which their employees pay, was part of their tax contribution to the UK, which I thought was hilarious and tweeted earlier. But and a couple of other examples of where you might want to put transactions beyond people's reach. If you're buying a dirty weekend away with a mistress, you don't necessarily want your wife to find out about it. At the moment, you can conceal that transaction. Are we moving to a future where that's not possible? And likewise, you might want to go and blow half a gram of Charlie up your nose at the weekend. Is that kind of future just going to be? Are we going to be paying for that in goat's teeth and stuff in the future, or are we going to accept that people want to do things that they don't want the government to find out, they don't want the wife to find out, and they certainly don't want the cops to find out about, and are we going to facilitate that kind of transaction? I don't have Bitcoin. I have no need for any of this nonsense. But other people might do dodgy things that I don't do and wouldn't sanction.
Let me go for that. I mean, first off, whether people do things dodgy or not, right? I guess a part of me is with the Bitcoins piece, that we shouldn't be judges of how people use their money, as long as it's within the realms of what we believe is legal. And that is obviously on a case-by-case basis, right? But the fact is that people use cash in almost an infinite number of ways currently, but that is limited, obviously, in that you have to tender banknotes and coins, and it's typically on a person-to-person basis. What my business does is it allows people to use cash electronically. So suddenly you can use cash in the same way you would use cash in the high street, or to pay a friend, or to I don't know, to place a bet, or to whatever you want to do. You can do that online and electronically, and that's something that is empowering, hugely empowering for millions and millions of people around the world, either because they don't have a bank account or access to financial services, or they don't want to be followed around as to what exactly they're spending their money on.
Bitcoin is the digital equivalent of cash. You can actually even make it more anonymous than it currently is, because there are mixing services which make it a mathematical impossibility to trace the origin of payments. But as David said, the social good far outweighs any social negatives completely. It's like GPS receivers. GPS receivers were invented by the military in order to allow missiles to trace to their target. And the only way to stop terrorists using that technology is to take it away from everyone else. And can you imagine what that would do to the economy? There's hundreds of technologies which we could have said in foresight, I don't see the social utility of this. And just to be very narrow-minded is incredibly disruptive.
So, reality is that this business is commercial, and most players in this business have got a brand that they want to maintain or enhance, and as such, they shy away from certain transactions that they don't think fall in line with their brand. And one of the currencies that works today without a brand is cash, whether it be dollars, whether it be sterling, whether it be euro. For certain niches, there will be other currencies that get built fit for their purpose, and Bitcoin has purposes. I've got to say, I'll take my chance now to say this. As a brand, I think Bitcoin is damaged by the use that it has applied for itself in the past year or two, and by the associations that are made with it, and I think therefore it's damaging its chance of becoming a socially good and valuable tool because of its previous association. There you go.
will always win out, you know? Like, it's the same story of technology in all of human history. When a young wood printer from Germany invented the printing press, revolution swept throughout the whole of Europe. Within 100 years, there was wars and social strife all throughout Europe because people could now read what was written in their Bible. It doesn't matter about branding when you have when you actually have a piece of science or technology which actually does actually change things for the good. I always think the truth wins out eventually.
I don't know what to say to that, really. It's kind of... the market always solves all problems, right? Market always finds a way. Simple as that. I think that's pretty much what you were saying. If you need black market, and black market economies will always exist, people will find a way to transact in them with some form of currency or other. I mean, people use gold bars, people used to use bearer bonds, you know, whatever was anonymous, there's always a way. Gambling websites, most banks don't want to touch them with a barge pole. They find a way. They've found ways around it with virtual currencies, ironically, of all things, right? Market always finds a way. If you need to be anonymous, there's a solution, always. Sorry? I don't yeah, we're always going. We're safe in terms of being naughty, yes, sure.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, talking of digital money, what I'd like to sort of say is that the internet has obviously given birth to e-commerce. Is very much more business is done online, and I think that this now also gives us opportunity for a whole global microeconomy market that's been completely overlooked in the past and inaccessible for most people. How are all your digital money's going to will they still be overlooked with your solutions, or can you sort of facilitate for microtransactions?
First off, yeah, I mean, the mission of my business is to empower people worldwide to use cash electronically, irrespective of their status, any device, or boundary. Okay. So it's about empowering those people.
In that, would it be feasible to buy a penny sweet with your system then?
Sadly not. I mean, it could be actually, yes. I mean, if you buy that online, yes. I mean,
what about the fees?
Well, our fees are a percentage, so our fee for a penny redemption would be obviously a tiny fraction of a penny.
I mean, there's always going to be some limits, right? I mean, everyone tries to make it down to the smallest degree. My business, I work for the currency cloud, so we do international payments, and what our objective is to make the world of currency conversion much more simpler, essentially make it so that it's almost the same as making a domestic payment, which we've seen so much innovation with, so much cost reduction and new technology, but it's not worked on a global scale. Whereas, as you say, with e-commerce, as soon as you have an online site, you are pretty much global instantaneously, no matter how small a business you are. And what we look to do is we don't seek to specialize and be the guy that takes the cash. We leave that to others on the panel here. They're the payment gateways. We believe in our expertise is in converting that money and transferring it around the globe effectively and at low cost. So we see people focusing on little silos and little core capabilities, which is, to me personally, the way that financial services as a whole is going. It's the more we focus and we see niche providers sitting on top of the banks, because I don't think we're going to get rid of the banks. We need banks. They're plumbing. They're the utilities in the market. But a whole bunch of service providers sitting on top, delivering very, very niche core capabilities. We provide a lot of efficiency, even though we're each extracting fees. Those little fees that each of us extract because of our individual efficiency ends up being cheaper than what potentially you're paying to a bank today. And that's the only way a lot of the fintech, the payment service providers work and are adding value, because cost does become a core factor in this. But it's because the sum of those parts, we're adding additional layers, but the sum of those parts ends up being cheaper. And so internationally, yes, we're trying to get smaller and smaller transactions. We can handle international transfers of $1, a massive scale at a very, very low cost. That would not be feasible 5-10 years ago, right? Now, maybe in 5 years' time we'll get down to a penny. Maybe in 2 years' time we'll get down to a penny. But we are also constrained in the system to some degree, and we try and beat it as much as we can.
When I was reading the list of the points about Bitcoin, and I got cut off, like the points. Yeah, one of the things I was gonna say was, that it's fast transfers, no chargebacks, no fees, and also that it's divisible, and you can send pennies or fractions of a pennies if you want. Like, that's it.
I'm not going to argue this again. You get charged because you have to convert back into fiat currency, and that spread is compacted.
If I have 10 bitcoins, which I bought, like let's say there is a fee. Let's say I didn't buy at perfect market price, then I can make as many fractional Bitcoin transfers as I want. There's no fee per transfer. That's
Within the ecosystem.
within the ecosystem.
When you transfer back, the cost is incorporated in the transaction. I can show you mathematically later if you want. Happy to.
Let's all sign up for that one. Right, sure.
I was just going to make a point. You talk about digital money. We haven't touched. We've talked about kind of Western. We haven't touched about the underbanked. In Africa, there's amazing stuff going on in digital money, mobile money, SMS transfers, real simple. The likes of M-Pesa in Kenya and others, Gcash in the Philippines. It changes people's lives. There's communities built up on micro loans where they facilitate loans through mobile phone SMS payments, which they just could never do. They spend 15% of their disposable income paying their utility bills. With mobile payments and SMS payments, it takes that down to a minimal. So, we're talking about maybe the high end, some of the wallet stuff. There's some fantastic digital money going on in a lot of the smaller markets.
We're all done there. I'm going to call the panel to a close. Thank you very, very much.